You're welcome to ask questions too, because I'm going to put a link on my YouTube channel that's private. It'll just be a a listed link, and then after this semester I'll delete it and rebuild it or something for the class, for a different class. But okay, so what I'm going to do after I did all the other stuff is I'm going to take and make a geometry piece, a box, go to front like this, do this, make a shingle size about the like, and that's a really thick shingle, so knowing that it's built from the back, if I do height, it's going to go thinner this way, and I'm probably going to make it a little bit bigger so we don't have as much room to fight with here, so I'll probably just do like 4 on this one, and then I'll do like 45 on this one, and we'll do 35 on this one. Doesn't have to be huge, just something. And if you want, you can even divide it by 1, and then you could break it down to a double poly, do some preliminary modeling on here. You don't want to do a lot of it because we're going to do most of our sculpting and stuff inside of ZBrush. Okay, so we're going to take this, and then I'm going to rotate it. Oops, not like that. Rotate it on this axis, look at it from the left, go back to move tool. Okay, up here, kind of rotate it so it's laying like that. Okay, then I'll go back to front, and I'll just move it over, bonk, like this. And at this point, if I want to make it longer, easy enough. We'll just take this, go left, like that, and I'll just pull it out a little bit. So it's a little bit longer, so it looks like there's a little over 3, so 3 will hang off the edge a little bit, that's good. Then I want to take it and move it over this way just a little bit. If we look at his, that's about right, and that's, really tiles don't hang over the edges unless they're like Spanish tiles, and even Spanish tiles have curved edges that try and stop it from going too far off the top, but we're going to do it because it's arty farty and whatever. And we're going to take this, and I'm going to make it a little bit thicker too, just a little bit. Okay, so we have this, and then what do we do now? So I have it, and I really can do a few things. There's a couple things I could do. I could tile it downward first, or I could tile it rightward first. And here's why I'm going to go down, because all the array is going to do is duplicate this thing, the amount I say, and maybe a little bit rotated too, and over and over and over and over again. So that's good if it's this direction, because each one of them will tile that way. If I do it down here, and I do it for the top and then tile the array downwards, I have to kind of go X and Y and X and Y for each and every one of them. So the easiest way to do it is just to go down and build it first. I'm just going to build it really simple. Come back to L, look at here, and say, put this into the, touching more or less. Doesn't have to clip into that, but something touching there. Then I'm going to shift and drag a copy of it and put it underneath. And technically, I guess I could just do it as, in fact, I should just do it as that. So instead of copying it and then attaching them like I did last time, I'll just go as an element, go left again. I always push left, and you'll see me jump back and forth to viewports all the time. And I'll do this, and I'll just think, it needs to overlap a little bit, so I'll go to there, and then I'll go to this, and it's still a little bit short, and it's probably because I put these too far back. So I'll push this one out. And then if I need to rotate them a little bit, I can do that. I'll take this one, take it there. I'll grab this one, move it down a little further. Let's see. Yeah, it's pretty good. I want it to go up so it gives a little flavor. We can even, if you want, change them per piece. You could do this, and bring it back down and stuff. The only thing I want to point out is that if you do it, it'll do it all across here, so it ends up looking tiling, but you're going to end up sculpting these individually anyway. There's going to be a lot of little sculpting work for you to do over the break. It'll get you better at ZBrush, and it'll be fun. So, okay. So another thing you could do at this point is I could shift, by the way, if you didn't know this, I can shift and drag a copy of it to like here, and then say, I want to go 4 times. And it'll do 4 rows of them, and it makes it all perfect and everything. Or I could do, in this case, I need more, so we'll do it this way, and I'll say, I always try and shoot higher, so I'll say like 10. And then come back in here and delete what I don't want. And you'll see it's a little short, that's fine. But that's really not what we're looking to do. So we're going to do it a little bit different because we want those tiles in the version he has, they tilt over each other. So the big thing about tiles, and if you ever worked with somebody who did roofing jobs, they have to overlap each other from the side and from the top and stuff like that. So we're going to try and make them tile so they all go underneath. Everything goes on top of the layer we just put down, and then they tilt downwards on the next, and so on. So, you know, and this is a small array, so it's not a big deal, but you know, we could just grab them and then rotate them like this, and then lift them up, and take our time and do them right. Make sure they're all independent. You're going to have to come back and tweak. That's just part of the deal. But we're going to do it with an array so I can show you how those work. So we're going to come in here. We're going to go to Tools. We're going to go to Array. And then we're going to open this little menu up. And right away, we're going to change it from, it sure should say instance. We don't want an instance. We want a copy. An instance means if I change one, it changes them all. We don't want that. So it also means you can't combine them into one mesh. And that's a problem. So we're going to say copy, and then we're going to say preview. And right now I already had it set up, so I'll say this will be 0. And if I say preview, and this actually was 10 by default, if I say preview, it doesn't look like it did anything. That's because it's only repeating themselves on top of each other. So if I say OK, I can click here and drag, and there's 10 copies of this thing standing right on top of each other. So that's really not what we want. So we're going to back out of that. Make sure I only have one left. Okay. Go back into Array, and now we're going to decide how far they go, and this is where the preview comes into play. So we'll leave it at 10, and then we'll just scroll this number up, and as we scroll it up and we turn on the wireframe, we can see where they're overlapping. This is what we want to pay attention to. We want these to overlap just a little bit from each other. So I think the last time I did it was 39. I didn't have the numbers the same necessarily, so let's see if that's the same now. Yeah, I guess 39 works pretty good. And then I don't need 10, and I don't have to delete them if I just come back. That's a little bit far, so at this point I can either go back and edit my my roof tile, or I can leave it the way it is and then know that when I'm done combining and moving all these pieces, I can come back and scale it all in as one object, so they, you know, evenly scale all the tiles closer together. So the other thing you can do here too is you can also rotate. So if we play with a rotate, though, you'll see it's not going to work the way we want, probably. So let's see if I do a, I think this one. Hello. Okay, so that's too much. That's not working, so we'll pull that back. I didn't mean to do 189 degrees. Let's just do like 2 degrees. There. And that's a little bit better. And really all you're kind of looking for is a way to mitigate the amount of work you have to do after. But you'll also notice it's kind of tilting down this way. So for my piece, my brain, I think it's easier just to leave the rotation for later. Really simple. You get these all set up and you say okay. And then, and I'm sure I could tweak it, but again, to me it's about how long is it going to take me to do that, and how quickly can I just do it this way. Like this. And if I really wanted to, I should have cut it down the middle, so I'll do that real quick. And here, I'll do this, make my life easier. Go to 2 inside of here, grab this. This tool, if you hadn't seen it before, it's called Swift Loop. You can actually loop really simply by just clicking. You don't have to do the connect thing. And that's cool. The only difference between that and connect, really, is that connect can do it evenly. It's an even way to do it, so at this point it's fine. When I'm doing a lot of support edges, and sometimes I do that. So I'm going to take these and do the same thing that I did with the bend out. I'm going to bend them I'm going to bend them up a little bit. So kind of like that. So I get that bend, and that'll help me when they sit on top of each other be closer to what I want. Okay, then I'll go back to array. And this is what I didn't even do this last time, so, you know, you always end up editing things differently when you come back and looking at them. Preview, we know that it works. Now they almost work by themselves. And if I had a local rotation, but I don't think we do. Let's try it. 2. Did you do anything? Oh, I guess we have to re-own it. Yeah. So yeah, at this point, it's like, yeah, I could figure this out. I could sit down and do all the math, and if I had if I had to tile like 50 houses, for sure, absolutely figure this out so I could have it all set up every time I did it. But since it's only this one piece right now, then I'm just gonna rotate it and make sure it's not clipping into the ground a little bit. Even, you know, this is me nitpicking about how it shouldn't be in the ground, so I'll pull it up a little bit. And probably the smart thing to do is just pay attention to what I do. So I'll rotate, and I have my snap on, so I'll snap it 5 degrees, it looks like. Yep, 5 degrees. Now we'll play with those in a second. So here, what I could do, even this, I can just grab them all. Oops, not all of them, just those things. And then make sure this is on separate rotation, so each of them have their own pivot point. And when I rotate them, they'll all rotate just like that for me. So that works pretty decently. Okay. So then I have that. Now I've got this set up. What do I do next? I come in here and I start making them not perfect by attaching them together at this point. Attach, 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 attach. And then I go to each one individually, and there's what, 3, 6, 7 times 3, 21 of them. I know it's a lot, right? It's really not. You'll get used to the idea. So maybe I'll move this one down a little bit so it's not clipping inside of there, or maybe I'll just rotate it in its own. And the one thing you want to do is when you're rotating, I should show you. This is local. This is the view where it's set to, right? We didn't like that. We can go to world, right? This is the world, so we can look at that. It's the world axis setup. Weirdly, it's not. Maybe it's because I'm on sub-object. Anyway, but what we probably want to do is called local. So we'll come down here to local, and it'll rotate. You can look that it rotates off of the object's actual own pivot point. So like each one of them will be a little bit different, and that way you have a little bit more control. And you know, maybe I'll tilt it this way a little bit, make it a little bit better. I'll grab this one and go up a little bit, and then move it out a little bit. Again, I would go back to local for this. That way it's moving out from the center of its object. And then take this one, and maybe I could even take an edge, and I'll take some time and just do these models separately like that. But for now, we'll just do a few of them at a time. We'll just go to 5, grab this one, this one, this one, and this one, and rotate it. And then grab this one, and let's do this one and go rotate it this way. Just want to make it a little bit more disarrayed so it's not perfectly lined up. Really, these should be up higher. Like this should be up here, and then rotate it back down. Oops, stop. Rotate it back down like that, and then this one would rotate up more. It's just this cold, this is why roofers know what they're doing. It takes time to get good at what you're doing. Anyway, so play with it, get it so it's not all perfect. It's pretty much, for our needs, it's fine for the start here. And it looks pretty decent for what they have. And, really, I don't think I'd have to look it up, and it makes you want to look it up. But I don't think they end the same way. I think they find a middle ground and find a way to crease the middle, and then that way this side is underneath and the other way around, so it wouldn't keep going because that gives the same problem. But that's fine for our needs, for our cartoony kind of stylized sort of needs. Then these are fine. So now I have it all as one object, and they're all kind of tiled out pretty good. They're not perfect, but they're good. We could do noise modifiers on them. We could do all kinds of crazy stuff, but again, let's wait till we get to ZBrush so you can take your time and make them pretty. Okay, so how do we do, what do we do to make it on both sides in this case? Because if I do, first off, go back to your world coordinate system, and then go to W and do the, make sure you're in that in there, and then scale and do the same thing. What you're going to do, if I tile it now, like if I mirror it now, it's not going to work right. So I'll say symmetry, and first off, I don't even know where it went. Oh, we're right there. So that one's not too bad, but if I do like Y and then flip it, it does that. Okay. So what's going on? Why is it not mirroring correctly? Kind of wanted to mirror over here. Well, there's a couple of things that are wrong, and we've done this before, but I want to show you and talk to you about it real quick. You look at this and you say, okay, so why is it not tiling correct or mirroring correctly? Well, first off, we see that, so that's part of the problem. It's, you know, it's not off its own. It's off its own axis here. You can even go back to local real quick, and you can see that this is the axis, and that's why it's going up. When you do a symmetry, it's based off the local object's axis, so it goes up. So what we need to do is change it so it matches, first off, the center of the whole object, so it'll mirror to this side, and then also the direction it's mirroring. So we do that really simply, and I think I've shown you this before, but I haven't. If I haven't, here's a cool tool that I use a lot. Okay, so I have these two boxes, and I want this one in the center of this one. I have this button up here called Quick Align. If you hold it down, there's a bunch of different options, but I use Quick Align most. Quick Align, and I can click on that. Oh wait, it's aligning to itself perfectly. Click on this one and go to that, and then it's inside of that, the center of it. So we're gonna do the same thing, but we're gonna use it for a pivot point. So we'll go back to left, look at this, grab this object. We're gonna go to our pivot point, activate or affect pivot point. And here it tells us the real pivot point of this object's local. So the first thing we want to do is probably say align to the world, so at least it's this direction. And then the next thing we're going to do is push that little lightning bolt button and find the center, find the thing to the center of the well, which is this one right here. It does put it down here, but it really doesn't matter because we're just going right and left. But now I've got it centered and rotated in the right position. And if we're lucky, it'll work. But most likely, it'll do what it just did. That doesn't seem right, but look at this. If you look at the pivot point it's making, it's because even though I've moved the pivot point, even though I've realigned the pivot point, it didn't lock it. That's why we use something that we talked about before, and I have as a right-click menu thing called Reset Xform, but we come over here into the Tools menu, and it's right there. It's Reset Xform and reset it. Basically, if I look at this, pivot now, it's perfect. It's exactly where I set it up. It just takes whatever you already have and locks those settings in. It makes it a whole brand new object. If I go back to modify, it still has it on there, and I can right click and say collapse down. This is the clean up whatever you did before button. That's why I have it as a shortcut. And I think, yeah, I can show you that too if you want. Do y'all want to know how to make one of those for yourself real quick? To put it in your shortcut menu? Okay. They changed the shortcuts in here, the Hotkey Editor. I don't like that, but they still have the old way of doing the shortcut stuff, or the quad menu thing. So you come in here and you say quads, which is what these things that pop up are. And then you say which quad, and in this case it's the main. We just want the main quad. And you'll see it's got 4 different areas. So right here is, if we look at this right here, you can see it says move, rotate, all this stuff. It's the same thing it says here. These are all the same. And if I go to this quad, you'll see it says Reset Xform, which I have right there. So I want to add it. How do I do that? And it has 2 little lines. Really easy. You just come in here and you say Reset, and you find Xform right there. And now you want to edit it. You just want to, I think you just have to, yeah, you just drag it over. Okay. you just drag it over and put it in. And then these things right here, I can do too. So if I wanted to break it up even more. So what I did is I dragged it in between these two and then added another dotted line. Super fast, super easy, and then make sure you say save. And then say save, and if you want to use your UI or whatever, you can overwrite the original. That's fine, whatever. And then you close it off. And it should be able to be brought into the next one too, if you update your Macs or something. But anyway, so now it's reset Xform. It's the same thing as the other reset Xform, except it's awesome because it also collapses it for you. So that reset Xform collapses it and it puts the modifier, collapses it, and you're free again. So all I have to do now is go back to symmetry and then go to Y, and it disappears, of course. So I flip it, and bam, I'm back in business. Everything's done. Now, the other thing I want to look at is it's too wide. So instead of trying to fix it by noodling with the tiles and then testing it, noodling with the tiles and testing it, in reality, if I just come back into here, since I know I'm going to modify it, I can just scale it. And if I wanted to, I could scale it in a simple way. I can just do it this way for now. You know, again, do this Alt-X. Actually, we'll just do this, not that, this one. So I'll look at it and I'll go like that. So what you're looking at when you do this stuff is this distance needs to match this distance. If I have this distance and this distance the same amount, meaning I scale it, let me pull it back out. So right now, it's perfect over here, but as I scale it, it scales, you know, from the center of the object. So there's a couple things you could do. You can put it in the center, or you can just do like my brain does and just says, okay, I need to make this distance like that, and then move it over. And then after I got it centered, I can tile it back. I'm maybe moving over faster, but anyway. And then my symmetry works, and now I've got tiles, and they're all rickety looking tiles, and right now they're kind of floaty, but we'll get to, you know, fixing that. Any questions?
I have one question about Xform. When you click, you know, reset Xform, does it also delete the local axis to like be the same as like the world axis from the object?
It will lock down whatever axis you have it set to. So if I had it, no, I mean, like if I go back to local, it's going to be the same because I reset the Xform to match the world.
Okay, that's what I was just checking.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I did that, is because if you don't, it's still got that residual information of the original axis, which is, you know, it's a box that I tilted, so the axis is now going in this direction. So, you know, then I just reset it, put it in the right position, and then I reset Xform, and it collapses all that information down. If I go back in here, though, I can also, if I come back to here, go to like this thing, and I'm on, let's go to Move Tool and Local. The local's still based off of this single object, though.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's what I wanted to know. If it resets it, if it resets the local to be like world axis. Okay.
It does for the main object, but not for sub-object level, because each object has its own axis too.
Okay. That's cool. Is there actually a way for you to take that sub-object and then, or the sub-object local to back to the whatever? Well, I don't know what I'm saying. The overall object. Is there a way to like copy it? Copy the pivot?
So, let me see something.
I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I just want to know because I had problems with Maya because I would do the same thing in Maya, but it's like, oh, you froze transformations, now you lose your axis.
Yeah, I mean, you can. I'm trying to remember how to do it. The other thing that I love about Maya is they have that. They put it in here finally. I just don't like where it is. They have a working pivot too.
Yeah, I was messing around with that. That's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. And Maya, it's just a shortcut. And I also like the G button in Maya where it just repeats the last thing you did. But anyway, there's a couple things in Maya that are really cool. But there's a lot of things in both of these programs. But yeah, I don't know if you can ever reset the pivot back to. I think actually, what if I went to? Oh yeah, actually it's right there. Yeah, I can just go Effect Pivot and there's just say Align to Object or Center to Object. And then right now it's going to align to object because it's the same thing. Hold on. Let me take this half off and see if this will, this one, and then say Effect Object, and then say Align to Object. Nope, it's broketed. So
yeah. I was messing around with like hotkeys for the working pivot and stuff last night. I was like, okay, this is how we do this, because I liked how Maya did have that hotkey.
Oh yeah, you can put the hotkeys and stuff too. The working pivot, yeah. I just, I use it a little bit. It's just because I haven't done it that way, so it doesn't come to my head a lot. So it's just my brain. It's my old school training, I should say. Try and keep with what you know, so you can get through it faster. But yeah, I'm sure if I had more time and I wasn't always working, I'd do that. That was nice. Let's just do. Click something and it set the pivot. Oh, I think I clicked here. Whoop. Okay. Anyway, so any other questions? Pretty simple, right?
I got one, but it's not related to the shingles.
Okay. What?
So I understood how you did the spindle part with the rope, but I had a hard time trying this spline to work around the well, like how you brought it down and brought it back up and then down again. It was just acting really weird.
Okay.
Same here. Mine was really off.
So let me show you how the best way to work with splines is. So like always work from a single direction first. First you want to do like a spline that goes here, line, and just go like I'm going to go here, I'm going to go down, I'm going to go up, I'm going to go over, I'm going to go down here, and then I'm going to go like that. Not very clean, not very beautiful, but it has handlebars or Bezier corners and stuff that you can mess with. So what you do is then you modify. So you go back into your modify menu and you just mess with the verts. And first you put it where you want it. So I'll move it up here. I don't teach a lot of spline stuff because it doesn't come up as often in anything that I ever work on, honestly. Basically wires and ropes and random little other things possibly, but that's about it. So you take that, and as long as you start in a flat way, it won't, because if you draw from this direction, if I do a new spline, and I think I'm going straight, look, I'm going to go straight down, then up and over, and then it's going to be like that. So that sucks. Okay, so yeah, you always have to be in a straight orthographic view. And then after you do that, we'll come back to this. The trick, and I like to actually not have it rendering while I'm working, and then I'll come back and clean that up, is you take it and you go to Vert Mode just like you would inside of a model. And then each of these verts have different ways of working. Okay, so I can right click, I can just select one and then right click, and then inside my drop down menu and my quad menu, I have the options to go smooth, which I usually start with. If I can get away with smooth, I'll use that first. I have Bezier, which lets me take the handles and move them. Now, the trick with working with these handlebars is, there is of course always a trick, is whatever direction it went to last is the direction it's going to go. So like I'm trying to click and drag and it's not going anywhere because I'm in an orthographic view and the last way I went was Z, so it doesn't work in that direction. But if I go back to L and I click here and I click on like X, and now I can move it anywhere that X way. And if I click on this up here, just clicking once and then dragging, I can do both. So that's one of those things that you have to get, your head around. And then if you want to move the whole dot, you just move you click where you normally would move. The other thing is, then I take like this one. Really what I would do is take everything and say, start with smooth and see how bad it looks. And then I'm going to come down here. My wife, working in Photoshop a lot with the shape tools in Photoshop, because that's how you get precise UI stuff, taught me a few things. And she's not here to hear it. I should have waited till she was here so I got credit. So is the less points you have, the better. That's the big thing first. You can always add points, but if you try and like have extra points in here when you're modeling it, so you noticed I only did like every time it turned, and now I'm definitely going to have to add more points in, which I'll show you how to do, but at least I have it kind of going the way I want, and I don't have to move the world to, I just have to move this piece over here, and maybe I'll move this piece over here, and I'm getting that basic form down, but I'm not fighting with all these extra things, and the curves when you add too many forms also freak out too. I mean, it just would. So on like this is a regular curve, but see how it just goes straight? Well, I'm going to take it and I'm going to say Bezier on this one, and then I'm going to make sure I'm in these two directions, and then I'm going to go and kind of turn it over a little bit like that. This up here, even though I did Bezier on it, so you can see, oh, I didn't, but sometimes when you do Bezier on the corner ones, they don't really work, but in this case it's fine. So I can then, you know, look at this and say I really want this over here, and that works a little bit better. So the other thing you want to do after you get the basic position set up, and it will clip and stuff, that's fine, then you add in the extra points. And the extra points are as this. So I'll take this. I'm just going to put this down. See, the problem with smooth is it's just always the same. It's trying to average between the two. So I'm going to change this to, right now I'll do Bezier just because I haven't gone into corner stuff yet. So in this case, I just really want up and down. So I'm going to make sure I'm on the up and down. You can't select those pivot points. You just kind of have to move or go to this and then move it up like that. So I have that there, and then I can even rotate it. Once I turn it this way, I can go a little bit more this way or something. Okay, so I've got that. Now I can do, how do I, you know, add points so it doesn't, you know, I need basically like, just like when we're adding points to making our turbo smooth stuff, we need to put, basically we need to put support edges, but we're going to do support verts because we can only do so much with the light ones. So we'll come here, we'll right click, actually we'll right click on the line, and then we're going to say refine, and it just brings up this tool. I guess you don't have to click on the line, and then you can click and it adds one, and then you can click a couple. I suggest you only do a couple at a time. It's super easy to add them back in. You just move them over. They're all defaulted to Bezier too, by the way. So you know, this one probably was wrong, and if you need to get rid of one, you can just delete it and it gets rid of it. I just use the delete key. I'll take this one, and instead of using Bezier, I'm going to use Bezier. Here, let me do one thing. There. I'm going to use Bezier Corner. So what a Bezier Corner is, go back to Vert Mode here. What a Bezier Corner is it makes these handlebars independent of each other. So I get a little bit of a sharper angle. And whether I want that or not, I don't really think I do, but I can try it first. So it makes, hopefully it won't make it look weird, so I can go Bezier Corner and then take this one and move it out. But see, that's almost still too sharp, so I'm gonna undo that. What I'll do is I'll drag this down like that, so it's hopefully front. So it's not in the ground. And then I'll come over to the side one, and add another, refine another edge right here, and then I'll grab this one and go up, and then I can play with this, and that, and then I need probably another one, or move this over to the side a little more. If I want it to be sharp when it hits there, I'll put one there, and then, you know, I didn't even do that much on this, and then I'll take this one and I'll pull it up and pull it down, and then this one, I'll move it in, and now I can see how it looks. This will be a little bit, oh, that's wrong. So I can start to see how it looks. This right here is the interpolation, and we'll talk about how to make it look not as bad, but now I've got something that's close. It's definitely not masterpiece theater here or anything, but at least it's workable in vertex mode. This would be the only thing that we may want to fix before we go in, but depends on what we do with the rope. We may just end up texturing the rope, because actually making the rope strands as the 3D object is a lot of extra work and really won't pay off, because the final thing is going to be a texture issue anyway. If you were having a shot that had the rope like right in your face, then you would put the rope in, but you'd build the rope by strand in something like ZBrush, but we aren't going to do that. So it's just a little tweaking and working, and like still this one's, you know, needs to be over here like that, and then I probably just need to tweak at refine an edge, go right there, grab this one, and now my verts aren't showing up because they're also off because they're inside the thing. And then I'll pull it up, maybe just pull this up a little bit, pull it over. Grab this one. Let's see if I can find that handlebar. So if it doesn't look like you can find it, just go to like smooth, so it'll clean it up, you know. And for the first ones especially, and then you come back to this one. Here, let me turn off the rendering. Go to this one and say, I'm going to move you over so they kind of line up a little bit better. Pull it down. Get this one, pull it down. I don't really like working in splines, but I do see the point of them at some points. I don't like working in shapes in Photoshop either, so these tools are better than the Photoshop tools. I don't know how my wife doesn't go crazy because they're stupidly made. Okay, anyway, but you get the idea. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what we're doing to this, and I'll start a recording. So if we look and turn off the backface call here, this is really how it looks in games, and this is how it looks in ZBrush. So that would be a sucky thing, and this was actually made out of this. This was just extruded straight out from that. But really what I was planning and designing is that each one of these would be a stone. They're all separate stones. So how do I get that to do that without, you know, laboriously going back in here, since I just quickly built this so I had an idea. So kind of like these are all separate stones. Yours is going to look better. So how do I do that without, you know, breaking them all apart, then building these edges and stuff? So for me, I'm just saying this is a basic object that I made. I'm going to come in here and go to, not my NURBS curves, I'm going to go into a cylinder. Actually, I'm not even going to do cylinder, I'm going to do a tube. And I'm going to isolate what I've selected right there. I just broke it off. If it wasn't broken off, I just separated it. We'll do it again though. And then I'm going to come into my tube, and then from the center, and that's a big thing too, is if you look at it, it's all centered at 0, 0, 0. If I look at this object, it's 0, 0, 0. There's a reason I did that. Part of the problem, actually it's not, is that when I built it, you can see it was 0, 0, 0, but then I pulled it back down. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of adjusting, because when I make my tube, it's going to be from 0 up, but that's not a big deal. So top, and these are just kind of roughed in versions here, so I'll go tube, I'll click and drag out, and it's back to the default 18 sides. I'll come into here, and if I want, I can do Alt X so I can see where it goes, and then I'll pull it out like that, and I'll figure if it looks right or not. So first thing I'll do is I'll change the height segments, and then I'll obviously make it smaller, and then I'm going to drag it down to the position it needs to be in. I could snap it, but I'm not worried specifically about it. Take this height and drag it down like that, and if I want, I can think I just said 24 like that, and then this will just be 21, 25. Again, it's so funny that I do this because it doesn't ever matter, but it's just my brain. So and then let's do 186 on this one. And then, even though I drew it from the center, I didn't snap it to anything. So I'm just going to do that quick align again and align it to the other object. Interestingly, it's aligned 90% of it, which probably means this is the problem. Yeah, so if I look at G, that's at 0. So first off, I take this and make sure it's at 0. It is too. Oh, but that's a lie. That's a lie. So I'm going to move this to 0 by my hand, since I just moved the pivot point like a doofus. Then it should be pretty well aligned. There. I'll reset Xform real quick, and it's still not zeroed out, so I'll just move it real quick. It doesn't have to be, I'm just getting nitpicky, because again, that was just kind of a concept piece. Yeah, that works. Okay, so now I don't have to rebuild it. Now I don't have to fill in the holes for this other piece. Now this piece was just the planning stage, right? So I put that out. It took me 2 seconds to build the cylinder for this in this case. And so we'll isolate the other piece again. So now I have this piece. It's an edible mesh for weirdness reasons, and And then I have this as an editable poly, and it's now blocked together because I don't want to bring it in as like a husk inside a ZBrush. That'll be weird. So now it's an editable poly. I'm going to make my life really easy. And you'll see all I did is copy that. I'm going to do it again in a second, but copied that. And then I'm going to go to the top viewport. And what I want to do is separate each and every one of these to their own object. But I don't want to necessarily separate them to their own I want to separate them to their own elements, not their own objects. So all I have to do is grab this, and I'll push the F2 so we can see what I'm grabbing. This one, and make sure I get the back. Don't want that, don't want that. Grab this one, make sure you're getting both sides of it. We'll look at it after we do it, but this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And then we'll take a look. Looks like I got all the sides, I got all the centers. They're all separate. Now, I'm just going to say detach. When I detach, I'm going to leave it as an element because I don't want it as a separate object. I want them as just a separate element because that's going to make our lives in ZBrush so much easier. So I'm going to say separate element and say OK. And now, if you think about it, I have holes in all my objects. Does anybody know how we can fill those holes? Really easy? Bridge would be easy, but there's an easier way. Bridge would be tedious. There's an easier
Cap
way.
poly?
Cap. So if we take this edge mode, right, and you select any of these, it's only going to select those edges, the open edges. And when I push cap, it closes them. So with that in mind, if I come down here and I just grab everything, and then I push cap, and then I come back to 4 and move them back up, I have all of my edges are capped on both sides of them. So now I have every one of these as a separate object. So I'm going to show you real quick why we're doing this, but then we're going to come back and do the rest of it. This is what you need to do for the weekend. You're going to break apart everything into separate pieces so you can import them into ZBrush, and we can start sculpting on Tuesday. So I'm going to show you what we're doing, and so you're not blindly, so you understand what we're going for here. I'm going to export this. I'm going to say test ring, which I already did this morning just to make sure, and then I'll say OK. And then I'll come over to ZBrush, and I'll go to here, and I will say import. I'll go test ring, open, and there it is. There's the piece I made. So why do I want these all separate? What was the point of even doing that exercise? If I look at this, they're actually separate pieces. And if I do Shift F, they're all going to be, there we go, they already were. They're all going to be showing as one separate piece. But I can grab them separately, but in ZBrush, the way you can control that is this. We go, after we do that, we go to, I have it as a tool over here, but I'll show you where it is in here. And again, we'll do this on Tuesday. But we're going to come into here to poly groups, and we're going to click on auto groups. And bam, every one of them is a separate auto group. So now I have all these separate auto groups. What's the point of that? Well, now if I push Control Shift and click, I have one text, one object I'm working on, and I can just, let me first do one more thing. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to go to this, not that, I'm going to go to geometry, I'm going to turn off my smooth, I'm going to divide it a couple times, take maybe 3 times, turn on the smooth and do one more. Turn this F off, and already you can start to see they're separate breaks. But I really don't want it that way, I really just want it to be this. And then I'm going to say delete lower, and then I'm going to go back to Shift F, just so you can see what I'm looking at. These are all separate polygons, or separate objects. So if I Control Shift and click inside of ZBrush, now I have this separate object to work on, and then Shift F. This probably isn't enough geo, but we'll play with it and see. Okay, we'll assume this is enough. We're going to actually dynamesh them, but that's fine. Okay, so actually we probably won't in the beginning, so anyway. So I'll come into one of my brushes, find my pen, and I'll turn this off, and I'm going to come in and start. I'm going to turn this up. I may not have enough. It just doesn't have enough poly, so let me do a couple more divisions here. There, 500 should be good. Click, hides everyone but the one I'm selected. And then I come in here and I just do my stone work on here. Make it bigger and work. Obviously needs more polys, but we're just doing it for this. Okay. So I get this the way I like it, you know. It's all bricked out, you know, it's all this handmade stone stuff. And then I shift and click. Oops, shift and click off. Wait, not slice. I forgot I had slice on for something else. Click, and it brings it back out. Then I click on the next one, and then I'm sculpting away. Click on that. Click on the next one. I am sculpting away. So the idea being that by the time you're done, you're going to have different bricks all the way around the whole object. For each and every brick in the whole thing. Because that's what we do. And you could do it like this if you really wanted to, but you know, the real point is that you're trying to make each brick have its independent life. So you want to try and do them separately, and this makes it really easy to go in there and do that in that way. And then the other thing you can do is if we come back to Max and hide in isolation and we grab this one, I pushed Alt because that's what I'm used to clicking when I select things instead of ZBrush. I'm going to come here, I'm going to hide this one now for good. Okay. I'm going to grab here, I'm going to go to top. Or I might as well just do isolate selection, go to the top, start over, make another cylinder. And the reason I'm making it a cylinder because that way it doesn't fill in the gap. You can probably fake it and do that way, but we're just going to do it this way for now. So again, start G, start from the center. You can even snap to the grid if you wanted to. I just didn't. Oh, I'm not doing cylinder. I'm doing tube. I was like, why does that not match? Oh, because it's not the same. There we go. Tube. Do another one. Oh, you suck. I never clicked that second click right. Okay. So I've got that one, and then I can pull it in. This, let's say, and we'll end isolation, G, we'll grab that one and this one this time, and then we'll isolate slabs lid. So we have both these pieces. I haven't broken this apart yet, but I do the same thing. Just break it apart just like I did just a second ago. I'm going to export. I'm going to say test ring this time. I say yes. Like this. And then I'm going to pull back out. I'm going to go ahead and just delete this piece right here. That. I'm going to say file import. And go back to my test ring, import, and lo and behold, I not only have these, and if I push that auto group again, as separate pieces inside of their own sub-object, but I even got another sub-layer with the tube, the other tube, which I haven't broken up, so the auto group won't work. But the point is, once you break everything up, you export everything as one big piece, and you'll get layers for all the majorities of pieces. And you'll be able to break down into here and just sculpt it out. Now, here's the difference, the reason we do it this way, and this is why I'm showing you. Because this right here is old school, and it's a texture that, and there's nothing wrong with it, don't get me wrong, it's probably fine for, you know, a cell phone game or something if it's really far away. And I'm sure he did this a long time ago because, again, it's not even on his portfolio anymore. But this is all fake. This means this was you know, he painted in where he thought these bricks should go. He basically sculpted it in ZBrush, put the sculpt in, and it was just all one mesh. If you do it the right way and you actually have these as separate pieces, while it takes longer, the quality you will get is far outweighs the quality you can get by just trying to sculpt in. So if I was going to do it the way he did it, it would be this piece. So I'll take this, I'll go solo, kidoki. Nope. Stop it. Turn off solo. I have to remember which program I'm in. I'll go solo, and then this is how he did it in here. Deselect. Oh, I got to divide it a few times, so I have some geometry here to work with. Turn off the smooth, divide. 294, and we'll give it one more. 1.7 million, sure, why not? And then he came in, shift F, and he said, I'm going to sculpt in some cracks right here. And they're going to be cracks. And I'm going to do, and I've done this, so I'm not knocking on him, that's fine. And I want this one to have a little bit more of a gap in through there. And I'm sculpting it, and I'm sculpting it, and I'm sculpting it. And then I say, crap, now I want to make it like it has some chips out of this piece. So I come in here and I try and chip it, or I try and chip this piece, or if I want to have a nice beveled edge across the corner, I'm going to start overlapping and missing stuff and making them work off of each other. And I'm trying to make a crack. Now here's the thing, what I'm trying to do is make a little sphincter looking thing there. I'm trying to make a crack where there isn't one. I'm trying to sculpt in a crack when if I just have two pieces that are cracks that are separated. Actually, let me do this one. Not that one. Nice smoothies. There we go. If I come in here, I can control this brick and how it looks. I have full, and I have a crack because it's a separate brick, just like in reality. If you think about it, we're just doing it based on the way the world is built. You know, you really have separate bricks inside of a game, if you were building a well, and you're going to have the same thing here. I'm not going to make you break up the wood, except for the separate pieces of wood. You know, if you think about it. It's all just breaking it into, again, how it's built, because that brings out a better look. And even for stylized stuff, because you'll see once we once we remesh this, it'll be clean, and it'll have some of the sculpting work you did that ties perfectly into the low res pieces. If I down res this right now, I'm gonna have a piece that's completely different than if I just had a quad. See how that's different? That's the difference. You actually get realistic, beautiful pieces that actually work on their own. Even though it's going to be one long texture, you're going to have a much better representation of what you're trying to achieve with, you know, a different brick for each one. If you wanted to, you could even break it up more. You could break your bricks up into more pieces. You know, you could go into Max and break it up when you're subdividing it, and then import it the same way. You know, I could have done it right there when I was doing the subdivisions, just get another brick. If I wanted to make it more random, I could come into Max and do like this one. They're already separate, but let's do this one. So this is a separate piece. I could just come into collapse to Eval Poly, go to here, and just, actually, probably best to use Swift Loop on this one, because that way I don't have to be lined up perfectly, and I don't even need to be anything selected. So I'm going to go, I want one here, and maybe I want one that's really close here, that's just a slice. And if I wanted to, I could slice it off. I don't need to do that detail at this point. You know, it's just a way to break it up and make it feel more and more realistic. And again, that's the reason we use ZBrush for this stuff. That's the reason ZBrush is so much more effective and so popular and used everywhere, because we don't have to worry about, oh no, I have 12 different bricks, what am I gonna do? I don't have to paint one texture that fits everything all the time. Now, the other thing is, even if I built a tiling texture set, even if I built a trim sheet, I would build every brick for that trim sheet separately, or I'd build it more like this. because that's still going to give me better quality than if I had done it by trying to just sculpt into one object. So, and it looks better. So, so for us, if we look at this, and there. So what I would suggest is the easy stuff is the well, right? You can say, okay, I need another tube here. I probably need another tube here. I actually notched out my wood because it wouldn't have been stuck in there. It wouldn't have made any sense. This, you know, so I'm going to have this and then have another round that's a smaller, thinner set inside of there. But like this right here, I would break these into separate pieces, which they already are in mine, if they aren't in yours. I'm going to pick the right one here. So that's a separate piece, that's a separate piece, that's a separate piece, that's a one piece, that's a separate piece. And now I can do my own wood pieces on each of those, and it'll actually give you some time to work on wood. Same thing with these are pretty much done once you do it the way I just said. And then this piece here, the way I made it, is all one piece. I would probably just detach this center part. I probably will detach the center part, and then yeah, probably all the way to here. So this is his own wheel, and I probably would take off this metal piece, so it'd be easy to work with inside of ZBrush. Now, there's ways to do this in ZBrush, but this is not what we're about. I don't want to teach you more tools. I want you to be able to think about the amount of work that it takes to get things beautiful. And this is for designers too. So designers understand when you ask somebody to make something beautiful, they need to do it right. Like this right here, eventually it'll probably be part of this, so that's going to be fine, but I bring them in separately. So you can paint this as wood, and then if you know that you're going to put, like I know there's more stuff I need to put in here, if I'm going to put the plate piece right here, like it should be, there, like we looked on the not that one, not that one. Oh, I think I got rid of it looking at that Maya thing. But if I look at the trussels, there's a piece that's going to sit right on top here. That's like a piece that snaps to this piece. So I'd probably do that. I could even put a strip of metal around this like he has. That works too. I'm going to put a strip of metal around this. I would bring them in separate pieces. That way I can make a different feel for the grain, and I have a different feel for the metal. When I export it out, I'm going to export everything that's high res for the baking, and then I'm going to have what I told you, a remesh version of it for the low res. So from Tuesday, and I haven't written it up yet, but I'll write it up now, I want all separate elements of your object ready to go. All your bricks need to be separate. So like this one, again, it's a cylinder. I'm looking at this part right here. It's got 2 layers of bricks. That's the minimum I want you all to do. So so I would make another cylinder, and then probably here, I'll just do it to show you. So I'll do this again, I'll do this, then I'm going to come to tube, kind of try and get it centered, go to the thickness of this one, like that. And this one, I will do height going up to here. Obviously this is where my well began. It looks like it needs to be a little bit wider, so we'll try radius 100. That looks right. Probably, knowing me, I picked numbers that were even, so I'd say 80 and 100. Yep. Okay, so now I have that. I just need to divide the height segments by 1, because that's what it pretty much is on the other one. And then I'm gonna, in our isolate selection, like this, and then there's a couple ways, there's a couple tricks you can do to make this work, but you're going to do it in 2 separate builds. So again, you're going to be going thinking about how this best be done. Yeah, okay, here's another trick. So if I got a 4 and I take this and I go, well, to break it into editable poly. Go to 4, take this one, again from the top, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, that one, and that one. And then I will detach them as elements so they actually are still part of the same object. Then I'm going to go to 2, grab all of these edges right here. Now I've told you this before, but just in case you forgot, it's much easier if I go to front here to grab something you don't want while you're grabbing what you do want, and then alt and drag off what you don't want, than it is to try and just grab that edge. If you just try and grab that edge, you're gonna find yourself fighting with just trying to grab that edge, so don't do that. Actually at this point, yeah, you know what, before I do that, I go back and do what we did with the other one. I'm gonna grab all those edges and cap them. The only question I have with this capping thing is if it did when I hope it did, and it didn't, because you suck. Okay. Well, that sucks. Now I have to think that part through. I mean, the easiest solution would just make 2 rings and duplicate it, like build the first one. Okay, it said no more. So deselect. Okay. Do this. This is the easiest way to do it. Is take this, duplicate it, you know, by Control B, duplicates, make sure it's not an instance, and copy. Okay. Change the color so you can see there's a difference between the two real quick, because I didn't do it this way. If I had done it this way, I wouldn't have to do this. But and then basically go to 1. Yeah. Go to 1. Delete those edges so I have half of them. And I can do the same thing for the bottom down here. So there we go. So we have both of them separate. The only problem is that now they both have holes in the bottom and the top, and respectively. So here if I had done it right, just making 1, it would have been easier. But I didn't. So what I like to do, and the reason I don't, here I'm going to show you. I'm just going to use bridge to close these really. They should be lined up. But sometimes bridge does something wacky, so I'm just checking something. No, it worked perfectly. But if it does ever do something wacky, like twists them all around, like this one goes to that one, all you have to do is take 1, start it out, and then bridge. And then double click, oops, missed, double click, get rid of this one and this one, and then bridge will work. Just so you know, it didn't do it that time, but if it ever does, that's all you have to do is just start one, give it a direction, and then it'll be fine. So, end isolation, come back to this one, and then isolate selection again. Again, it's already, really, it's just bridge. I don't even have to hide them, I'm just showing you what I'm doing. It's easier. Bridge. Okay. And then end isolation. After I get those two like that, isolate selection, all I have to do is take one of them and attach the second one. So you have both of them. Because now, even though I've attached them, they still have the tops and bottoms for them, so I can do the exact same thing I did before. Here, and go to this one, grab that, which is going to grab all the layers, see? There's like 4 ways to do everything in here, so that's why sometimes I stop and I think, which way do I want to do? And I'm so ADD that I don't remember every time I do things, so how I do it. Feels good today. Okay, so then again, just do that detach and keep it an element, and then go back to your edge mode and say cap, and now theoretically, if this worked, it should just be, oh, you suck. Wait, I did edge. That's why. Whew. I was like, what? Okay, yeah, now that's its own break. And everyone should be. Everyone's capped, everyone's closed. Yes, it is daunting that you're going to sculpt, you know, 100 bricks over the vacation, but it's fun and it needs to be done. That's the way to do it. There's comes to a point where it's no quick answers for everything. That's the other thing too. The big thing about ZBrush and the big thing about what we're trying to move towards in 3D and what I'm trying to move towards in teaching is back to the art. So the tools are there to help us get to the art. If I was back in my college years, I would have sculpted or modeled each brick, and I had to actually modify each brick and stuff like that, or tried to do it really close, cheaply. But if you think about it, it took me like 5 minutes, and this one took a second more because I had to think about the best way to do it without extra work. But it took me 5-10 minutes to get everything locked out, and then it's ready to go into ZBrush, and then it's going to take me a couple hours probably to sculpt it, but that's a couple plus hours to sculpt it. We'll talk about how you sculpt wood, we'll talk about how you use alphas, we'll talk about how we can use the brush that I'm using. We'll also download what are called orb brushes, which are fun to use too. And we'll go in there and we'll make some really awesome artwork. And the thing is, we used to do this, not this one, not the way I'm doing it for sure, but we did a railroad car from scratch a few semesters ago, and it looked really good, and they did a decent job. But this is the next step. This will probably be one of the better pieces coming out of the 3DMR classes, and there's no way you can't walk out of this class saying you understand as designers, because designers don't have to take another 3D class, technically. You can't walk out of here and saying, I don't get what is the process, because you've now walked through all the process. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of making things beautiful, which is what the art process comes to, at least parts of it. There's other aspects of it pretty too. Questions?
Did you want us to redo the rope in the way you said?
No, you don't. I mean, if you have your rope and you're happy with it, do it that way. I'm fine with whatever way you think it looks good. You leave it. That's totally fine with me.
Is it cool? Is it cool if the thing we turn in for the assignment we already have? Is that if it's different than when we end up actually sculpting on?
Absolutely.
I did stuff way different. Kind of want to start from scratch just to have something turned in tonight.
Yeah, no, you're fine doing either way. I mean, I am completely aware that this is a 3DMR1 class. Okay, this is your first 3D class, and like you, Zane, you're a designer. This is your last 3D class, technically. So I don't expect miracles. Some people who've had 3D before, we always get some people in our classes who do amazing work for their first 3D class, but we don't expect you to be, crazy, all that stuff. That's later on. That's when we start looking at, this stuff. This is the VGA2 class, and they're working on all the crazy high-end stuff. That's also the gun level too, when they work on the guns and stuff. So if you start over, it's better for you. Not for me necessarily, but for you. If you start over, it'll be easier when you start breaking it apart. If you start over, it will it'll look better. And that I would say that about every time you start over for everything you ever work on, by the way. The first time you do, it's always kind of understanding the process. The second time you do it, even if it's just learning the steps that I did, it's going to be better. Even if you disagree with the steps that I did, it's still going to be better than if you did it from scratch on your own, figuring it out. So, yes, totally fine if what you do start, and I'm hoping actually what you end up with doesn't look like what we started with, what you have now. So, if you're going to start over, don't worry about turning that in tonight. Don't kill yourself to get that in. Turn in what you have and show me what you've learned so you can break it up, so when you turn in the next one, it'll be that much better. That shows progress to me, and that's more important than actually it being right the first time.
Okay, cool. So I'll turn in my goofy looking one that I made for today, and then once you say we sculpt, I'll have
you have the one. You can keep working on it. Yeah, I mean, go forward and work on it tonight for sure, but you don't have to turn it in now. I'm happy with whatever you figured out the first time, and then being so much better the next time. I mean, that's all we can ever ask for, is you all getting better every time. Cool. Anybody else?
Kinda. I just I was gonna ask you if there's a different workflow that if you would like, if it's okay if I could try this different way. But
Which
I
way?
know the assignment you wanted us to break up each block like that. But I just want to
Which
ask you if
way?
I could do some, like if essentially like what I would think would be a little faster is just use the insert multi-mesh tool in
No.
ZBrush and then create stones that way and then sculpt each one using the radial menu or radial symmetry and stuff and going around like that.
Yeah, I know. No, I don't want you to use that.
No?
I want you to do it for
Okay.
me.
That's
Yeah.
fine. I just wanted to ask if that was because
Yeah,
it just
no, I
seems
mean-
less tedious.
Well, it's going to be tedious because that's what art is. Art is tedious.
Oh well, yeah. I'm
That's
just meaning
the
in this
point.
one particular case.
You're still going to... The only difference is you're bringing it in, you're building it in ZBrush instead of building it in the 3D program.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's not
I just-
necessarily less tedious, but it's definitely different. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, just asking.
Yep. Anybody else? I'm gonna... Go ahead.
So, do you want us to do just the, like, to separate the bricks, or do you want us to do the whole well?
The whole well.
Gotcha.
Only the pieces. What you want to do is separate the pieces that would be separate. So if they're in reality separate, then you need to separate them. So hide all. And I'm gonna write this up, but hold on a second. Hide all. So this handle would be separate. And if I really got into it, I'm not necessarily at will, but this should be separate than this, because this is probably a wood piece that's stuck onto a metal piece that is stuck onto something with ball bearings or something random like that. But this is separate than this. And if the real big thing that's going to decide if you separate them is the material types. Like, even though these two are wood, you still want to separate this out, because you may want to carve in some, indentations where this wood is cracked, and crack this piece separately. And if you don't have this separate, you're going to be carving on top of this. And wood doesn't crack on both pieces. It only cracks on one piece at first, kind of thing. It's going to be cracking from the pressure pushing down and separating it out and all that stuff. So yes, I want you to separate the bricks. That's the most tedious of them. But then it's just like separate this one and all the different pieces of your wood pieces, and then the rope is already separate, so just keep that separate. I'm not worried too much about the rope. The rope probably won't change much, but we're going to bring it in because we're going to use it when we down-res everything, so we get something closer to what they saw in there. And then, but yeah, everything that is a separate element, like metal or wood, you want to separate, or stone, and everything that would be a separate piece in reality when they made this, separate. So,
Thank you.
yep. Anybody else? Okie dokie. I'll write it up. You guys can take off and start working or whatever, and we'll write it up, and we'll see you all Tuesday for some heavy Z brushing.
Sounds good.
All right. Have a good
Okey-doke.
Good.
weekend.
Good weekend.
I'll post this video too, and I'll send you all a link.